My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And tonight, well, we're going to start the show off, in case you didn't get to see it. I did a speech in Washington, D.C. Last week. It was a great rally, and I'll talk more about that after the speech, the Rally for America, and I think it was something that needed to be done. I think there needs to be more of these things, and they need to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I think the last thing we need in this country are politicians to get us excited about being patriots and being citizens. And I think what they did on a scale that there's people from all over the country that came there, I thought it was very valiant, and I thought the voice that they put out there was pretty amazing. So we're going to continue to talk about this, and hopefully somebody else will be inspired to do the same. So why don't we get started, and we'll play the speech.
So now, somebody that I actually like to watch on television because I think his opinion and what he's done for our nation as a Navy SEAL and the stuff he stands for embodies what we are driving for. Mr. Jonathan Gillum.
Thank you, everybody. All right, it's raining. I don't want to keep everybody out here for a long time. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to teach you a quick class. I don't even need an umbrella. Don't worry about that. I'm going to teach you a quick class. All right, that's what we're here for. We're not just here to hear me speak. I'm here to teach you all. That's what I do. I teach. So I want everybody in front. Everybody come up here in front. We're going to do a participation. I want everybody up here. If you're here for this rally, I want everybody up front. Come on, let's move with a purpose. Let's go. We don't have much time. It's raining. And you guys can make it deep. You don't have to come this close. All right, here's what I want to do. In the military, those of you that are veterans, you know how to dress right. You know, you put your elbow up here. You make sure your elbow across. I want everybody to do that. I'm doing this for a reason. All right, everybody dress right. Put your elbow up. Make sure you're squared off. I want everybody in straight lines.
Dress right, dress.
Let's go. If you're a veteran, help everybody out. Let's go. Move with a purpose. This is what we do. We move with a purpose. Come on. I want to see everybody in a straight line, just like this. Straight line. Straight line. Should be front to back, side to side. There's a reason why I'm doing this, folks.
That's how you do it.
Okay. What you see happening right now, this is called unity. Unity works when you have leaders that know they have a mission, they know what standard operating procedures are, they know how to task organize, but more importantly, unity works when you have a citizenry that wants to work together. Now, you all showed up here. Everybody that's out here right now that's an American citizen, that's not even a part of this, should be here, but they're not. And here's the facts, folks. There is a very small group of people in this country that are actually true patriots. You realize that? They're comfortable saying they're patriots. People walk up to me all the time and say, thank you for your service. They're comfortable saying that. But what they don't realize is that they are responsible for the true service to freedom. If you don't serve freedom, and if you're out there right now and you're listening to this, and you don't serve freedom, and you're a citizen, you are taking your citizenship for granted, and you are failing the founding fathers of this country. The founding fathers of this country gave us the tools. They fled tyranny. They created and started the fire that will forge freedom. But they are not the fighters of freedom anymore. We are. You are the fighters of freedom. You should not be comfortable saying I'm a patriot unless you wake up in the mornings, every morning, and do what it takes to sustain freedom. Those of you, you'll be laughed at. I've been laughed at because I support a president that isn't a part of the two-party corrupt system.
Amen.
In 1995, I sat on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial right down there. After I'd spent a week in Washington, D.C. as a senior in college, I got to spend a day in the DNC and a day in the RNC. And then I spent a week in the White House answering phone calls under the Clinton presidency. And when I sat there in 1995, what I felt was disillusionment. I didn't know what was happening with this country. I was 25 years old. I'd sat here in the seat of government for the first time, and I had no clue who they were serving. I didn't know what was going on. Years later, after I'd become a cop, served in the United States Navy as a Navy SEAL officer, went on and became an air marshal, then did threat assessments all over this country for the Department of Homeland Security, and later became an FBI agent in New York City. What I realized at that point is that we're looking at organized crime. We're looking at communism. And we're looking at two parties, and I'm not talking about the people in the Republican Party. I'm talking about the establishment members in the Republican Party and the majority of people that belong to the Democratic Party. They work in collusion together.
Yes, they do.
And there's another thing called the Red-Green Alliance, which is fundamental Islam and communism working together.
Yes, sir.
And you all need to know about this. If you say you're patriots, you should wake up every day and you should educate yourself on the reality of what's happening in this country. And if you're back there and you're an American citizen, you need to be doing the same thing.
Yes.
If you can hear my voice, I am a voice crying out in the world. Make the path straight for the Lord to travel and make freedom sustainable. Right now, what's happening is you're failing at your job. The founding fathers gave their lives. Soldiers gave their lives. Slaves gave their lives. Women gave their lives. Special interest people want to talk about what we should do for gay people. Gay people gave their lives for freedom. And now it's going to die with you, the American citizenry, because you refuse to fight. You think you got to go to some far-off land to fight. The enemy is here. And for the first time in our history, the enemy was born here. And they exist right there. They exist right there. And they, the people that work in there, are working to destroy our Constitution. You should not be comfortable with anyone that says they want to change the Constitution. There are a couple amendments that came along back in the early 1900s that I do agree should be gone. I do believe that there should be term limits. I do believe that serving in government shouldn't be a career.
Right.
It should be a duty and an honor.
Yes.
It should be just like jury duty, where you're called to do it. But getting back to what I was saying before, people do not know what they have. Because they were born in freedom. They were born in it. And comfort, for those of you that have served in the military, you know what I'm talking about. Comfort kills. Comfort will put you in the hospital. Comfort will paralyze your dreams. And comfort will destroy freedom. Freedom demands. It demands your participation. But the people that want you to live under their rules, the people that want you to learn dependency, the people that belong to that two-party, corrupt, organized crime and communist system. They don't want you to participate. They want you to be comfortable. They want you to sign over and say, we elected this person, we elected that person, we're comfortable with them going to Washington, D.C. We're comfortable with them being up in your capital or in your mayor's office, your chief of police, your sheriff. We're comfortable with that, with them being a judge. And you resign the duty to sustain freedom over to them, and then you just go off and you have a good day, you have your beer after work, you go out and buy your new clothes and find out what the new fashion is. All along, you are slowly burying yourself in your comfort, and you're allowing them to protect your freedom. Here's the thing, folks. Tyranny can only happen when a free people turn over their freedom to those tyrannical leaders. And tyranny will be sustained when the people that gave over their freedom are crushed by the same people they gave it over to. Remember that. This may sound like over-the-top stuff. Maybe not to this group, but if other people are back here listening, it may seem over the top. But trust me, folks, I worked in the government for over 15 years on official duty. I didn't realize what I was looking at until I stepped out of it. And it gets worse every year, but you're indoctrinated every year to accept a little bit more. Accept a little bit more. It's okay, don't worry. We hate, the Republicans say we hate Obamacare, but yet they don't do anything about it when it comes time for them to do something about it. They should have had a bill and said, Mr. President, we're so glad you're here. We've been working on this for 7 years to make sure that every American has health insurance, if that's what they want to do. They didn't do that.
They're in collusion.
They're in collusion.
Yeah, lobbyists.
You need to realize it's not a swamp. This is a cesspool. I've been saying this for a long time before President Trump. A swamp is an ecosystem. Those of you that have been through ranger school or any type of training where you got to go through a swamp. A swamp is an ecosystem. There's stuff in there that will devour you. You go down to your local sewer plant, and there's not much more in there than waste. Human waste. Which is what we got up here. Human waste. So I'm going to leave you with this. Look at this. The Lord wanted me to speak. He opened up the skies.
Yes.
I want to leave you with this. I want you to think about this. You see how I got you all on the line right here? This is what it's going to take. You all are the modern day Johnny Appleseeds. You go out. You plant the seeds. You're the ones that will change the world. Remember, the founding fathers set something in motion. They gathered the tools together. They started the fire. But just like a samurai sword, where they take the materials, they put them in the fire, they put them in the water, they put them in the fire, they hammer it, they flip it over, they hammer it, they put it in the fire some more. This goes on for a long process. It's called forging. This country is being forged. The founding fathers founded it. They fought for it. They established it. But they did not go through the forging process. That is happening now. And the only way it's going to be sustained is if the American people do what you're doing right now. If you stand together, it doesn't matter if you're in the front row or if you're in the back row or if you're on the left or the right. It doesn't matter. The fact is, if you stand together, amazing things can be done. Again, ask any veteran. When you take one veteran and you say, go fight that war, they're going to lose. But if you take 1,000 and you say, I want you to go to fight this battle, and I want you to crush this enemy, I'm going to teach you these skills, and I'm going to give you these weapons, then they go do that. And they fight that battle and they win because they're free people. They were never conquered. America was never conquered. We were established. So that's what I'm doing for you. I'm giving you the tools so that you can go and stand together, so that you don't stand alone, so that you understand who the enemy is. You can identify who the enemy is, and you can go and do battle with them. And let me tell you something. It's not going to be done with guns. It's going to be done with unity. It's going to be done by knowing who you're voting for. It's going to be done by the few spreading the word to the many and convincing them that this is the truth, this is the way, and this is how we sustain freedom. So don't walk out of here. Don't walk away from this thinking, that was a great rally, I'm pumped up. You have a job to do. Like I said before, they'll laugh at you. I live in Manhattan.
Oh, God.
I ride around, listen, I ride around on a scooter. It's an electric scooter. You can't get around in Manhattan anymore without in a car. On the front of it, I have a Trump sticker. And I get laughed at. You know what? Let them laugh at you.
That's right.
Let them laugh at you, because what's coming down the pipe, if we fail, they won't be laughing anymore. Right. But if we do what's right, trust me, folks, they're not going to be laughing. They weren't laughing on November 8th, excuse me, not on November 9th. They weren't laughing then. They're not laughing now. So don't allow people that don't believe in what you believe, that don't see what you see, don't allow them to kill your motivation. Don't allow them to walk all over you. And also, don't waste too much time on people that want to challenge you and not listen. Don't worry about those people. Move on to the next one. Farmers don't go down a row and get fixated on one seed. Farmers continue to plant, and then they harvest that. And then they feed their families with it, and they feed America. And that's what you're going to do. All right, so I'm going to leave you with this. I know we got to go. I want you to imagine right now that the founding fathers of this country are standing around with us here. And standing amongst you right now with angry faces, they're saying to you that we provided you with the vessel of freedom. And only you could sustain that freedom. But now, that freedom and the vessel that it came upon, the great Constitution of this country, are at risk of dying with you. Because all this country wants to do, and all the American people want to do, and all the politicians want to do, is serve their self. And they've forgotten about the tyranny that our founding fathers fled from. Let's go just a step further. Imagine all those that have fallen in battle are also standing around you right now. And they're looking down at you with confused faces. And they're saying to you, we gave our lives for you. And only you could sustain the freedom for future generations. But that freedom is at risk of dying with you, because all anybody wants to do is serve themselves. And let's not forget about the enslaved and the oppressed. If it wasn't for our Constitution, those people would still be enslaved and oppressed. They're enslaved and oppressed in other countries because they don't have our Constitution. But our Constitution, the founding fathers set a series of events in motion that would allow them to eventually be free. Now imagine if they're standing with us here today, and they're looking down at us with confused faces and sad faces. And they're saying, we gave our lives for you. But only you can ensure that our legacy lives forever. And now our legacy and your freedom and the great Constitution are at risk of dying with you. And so I ask you, have you taken the oath? You don't have to be in office to take that oath, to sustain and defend the Constitution. Are you ready to stop being comfortable? Are you ready to stop putting people, even this president that's in the White House now, to stop putting people in office and saying, they got it, because they don't got it? You must hold every single person that gets elected to the fire. And if they don't do their job, you get rid of them.
Recall them.
Recall them. Find somebody else. There's plenty of people out there, and they don't have Democrat and Republican behind their name. They have American citizen behind their name. They have veteran behind their name. They have doctor, not attorney. We don't need any more of those. They have truck driver. They have nurse, paramedic, fireman, cop, biker. Listen, there's more veterans that are bikers than exist in this building back here. And I don't see anything going wrong with these guys.
That's right.
We need more bikers and veterans in the Capitol building. All right, so, folks, that's a signal. The Lord's telling me to get out of here. It's going to rain. A frogman can sense when water is coming. So I'll leave you with this, folks. Be proud of who you are. This crowd doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be gigantic. It doesn't have to reach down there. Those are called the masses. And the only thing that's different between the masses and zombies is that zombies walk with their arms straight out. The masses do what they're told. They see what they're told. They act the way they're told to act. They eat what they're told to eat. Their fashion is what they're told to wear. Don't give in to that. I believe in you. And if this country needs to be great again, look at it this way. It was fewer than you that made this country.
That's right.
This group right here can change the world. You can change this country. And everybody else that's sitting around here should be listening. If you're an American citizen, you need to wake up. Because the Democratic and the Republican parties, the establishment in both of those parties, are destroying this country. And every seat of government in the United States, every single seat, is owned by those two parties. And those two parties, whether you realize it or not, are private companies. They are not government agencies. Every caucus that you vote in, every primary that you vote in, those are private voting events. Those are not government-sanctioned events. You all need to realize that. You've been monopolized. Every judge, every sheriff, every congressman, state and federal, every senator, every president, every Supreme Court justice are owned by those two private companies. It'd be no different than if Lowe's and Home Depot came up and owned every single seat. Take it back. I believe in you. Take it back. God bless you. I'm Jonathan Gillum. The truth has arrived.
All right, there you go, folks. That was the speech that I gave last Saturday for the Rally for America, and it was a great time, great people. I met so many good people out there that the only unfortunate thing about it is that they agreed with everything that I said, and that's good. I'm glad that they did, but the fact is, the people that don't agree or don't understand, those are the ones that need to be out there. I mean, the facts, folks, the greatest facts that we are faced with is that we have a citizenry that is out of touch with the reality of what's happening in this country. We have cops and federal agents that basically go into combat every day in some way, shape, or form against organized crime. And yet our country is led by criminals that belong to organizations and that belong to people who hate the Constitution. You know, I had some guy or somebody on here just a minute ago as I was playing that and said that I make great points and then I go off into conspiracy theory. There is nothing that I said during that speech that's conspiracy theory, not a single thing. In fact, I flee from conspiracy theories. I think I've given this example before where I was doing an investigation or was part of an investigation for, I can't go into great detail about the whole thing. Basically, this is what happened, though. This person had counterfeit products inside their warehouse. There was also drugs that were inside that warehouse. Drugs and a whole nother shipment of drugs were delivered by a certain person from a certain place. Because of the nature of what those drugs were, we couldn't allow them to just stay there, and when the person came back the next day, they would, potentially sell those drugs. Well, so we decided, our bosses decided, we'll go in, we'll take the drugs, we'll leave the counterfeit supplies that they have there of different types of things. I can't go into the details about this because it gives too much away about the case. But the next morning, the individual whose drugs and counterfeit items were in there completely freaked out, and we knew that he was going to freak out. So we're monitoring his phones, we're monitoring all the stuff that how he communicated, and he began to build a conspiracy theory. He knew this much about the truth. He knew that there were counterfeit items in there. He knew that drugs had just been delivered to him by somebody that he'd never seen before, but had a very specific look, and he knew where they came from. So he just developed this entire story that in his mind, and this is what he was telling everybody, and we were able to monitor the phones and develop his spider web very rapidly before we had to take the case down, because he said he was going to go find these people and kill them. But basically, in his mind, he created this whole conspiracy theory based off a very small bit of information that these people had knowingly delivered him drugs and then came back and took the drugs because they wanted to get him killed by whoever the people were that were manufacturing the drugs, the higher ups, and they were going to come after him, kill him, and then these people would then take over his territory. That's what he created in his own mind, and he set out to kill them. He set out to recruit people to help him go after these individuals that delivered the drugs. All the whole time, none of this was true. It's just simply we followed the people. We watched them deliver the drugs. The drugs were in the warehouse. Everybody went home. We went in and took the drugs. We had no other choice. And then we monitored what was happening. That's a conspiracy theory. I don't subscribe to conspiracy theories. What I do, and very similar to with the Russian issue with President Trump and how that whole thing, to me, appears to be an extortion case where you create a theory or you push a theory out there or an accusation out there, and then you slowly create the evidence when it's needed. And that's what I believe is being done with the Russian case. Now, how you're saying, how is that not a conspiracy when the other thing was? Well, because when we look at the nature of how the entire system of evidence that has been produced by the liberal left and some people on the establishment right, and how they work together, and how it all goes back to Russian footprints, which are never left by real Russian spies, how there are, unless they want to be seen, how there are certain groups like this fusion group that was part of making up, and we know that they made up some of the information that was collected and a dossier that was written about President Trump and was passed to John McCain, who I think is a criminal, and that was passed to the FBI, and none of that stuff ended up being true. We have enough circumstantial evidence to produce a theory where it's not conspiracy related. It's based on training and experience and understanding of the way things work. This individual, and see, we have a broad spectrum of information and training in the intelligence community, in the law enforcement community, in the military community that this person in the warehouse didn't have. I know, based on my training and experience, that how extortion works. I know how investigations unfold. I know that evidence doesn't just appear when you say that it should appear. And I also know the way that counterintelligence works. And this entire thing with the Russian ambassador, and how Russian businesses, and how the Russians have been, through the Obama years, the Russians had sanctions put upon them, and they're wanting certain things to be overturned and pushed backwards. There's all these different set of things that are in play here that have to go back, how the DNC didn't investigate that they were being hacked, the Seth Rich death, the Podesta emails, all these different things produce enough circumstantial evidence, and they in themselves produce a picture opposite of what the people that are making these accusations are trying to produce. In the case of this guy in the warehouse, he had no training and expertise in investigations. He had no idea that the FBI was even looking at him, or the DEA and all these other agencies that were looking at him. And he had no idea of the way that we work, because we don't normally share the way that we work with these people. So his response was to create the best picture that he could come up with the least amount of information he could find, or with the most information he could find, which is a very small portion of information. It's different when it comes to the Russian issue, and when myself and other experts look at this, analyze it, and say, this is a theory that we have. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a theory based on the maximum amount of evidence and the maximum amount of experience that somebody can bring to the table. Now, even with those, with my set of credentials and other people that have had on this show and the way we look at these things, we can always be wrong. There's no doubt about that. But when it comes to the things that I'm talking about in that speech, there's no conspiracy theory there, folks. The Democratic and the Republican parties, they own every seat of government in the United States. I've been talking with my researcher all day, and we've been going over and digging into people in the Chicago area and some of these families, like the Paul Ryan family. I'm not going to go into it right now because the information is still being collected, but I'm here to tell you, the Kennedys are not the only ones that go back into the Prohibition days, that go back into, like the Bushes, into the World War II days when they were helping fund war. There are families that go back, the Rockefellers, all these different groups of people that go back into monarchies from other countries. And they've never truly subsided in their ruling class. They have just, because they live in a country now that has a constitution, and because the founding fathers threw them a loop with this constitution, they just found another way through their money and power to put themselves in a position to rule. And that's basically what has happened here. So there's nothing that I'm saying that's conspiratorial. The American citizenry is asleep. Comfort has overwhelmed this country. It has overwhelmed every sense of our lives. Comfort. How do I get what I want? How do I eat without getting fat? Or how do I look better in a picture? I laugh about this. People, they'll take a picture straight out front and they're like, man, I look fat in that. That's because you are fat. And so what do? You put the picture up higher and higher until the point you're right here where you can't see anything, but your face looks really pretty. Well, that's a fake illusion. That's an illusion of reality. And that's where people live. They're comfortable with this, so they don't have to look at this. And now I'm not bagging on anybody who's overweight. Goodness knows I'm out of shape more than I've ever been in my entire life, I think. And I'm working to get back into shape. Don't think because I haven't been putting pictures up there about with me and Rico and I up there that I've stopped working out. But the fact is, folks, this country and its citizenry, I'm not really concerned with the rest of the world right now at this point. This country is in a bad place, and this country is going down a road that we may never recover from. That's the honest truth. Now, one of the things I was going to cover in the end of this show, but kind of goes right along with this speech and what I'm trying to say here, is that the DOD has, which I don't necessarily disagree with this program that they have, where they allow foreign-born citizens to come into our country and serve in the military as a path to citizenship in the United States. I don't disagree with that. But just like the State Department, the DOD is ripe with liberals. And I'm not talking about my good friends like Rick Unger and other people that I know that are liberal, people that I know here in New York City that I talked to a woman the other night. I think I talked about it on the last show that I did, where she has always voted Democrat, and she was not happy with Trump being in office, but she agrees that the president is a temporary and necessary bridge, dam to stop the flow of corruption in Washington, D.C. She actually sees that. She's smart enough to analyze that and know that the Democrat and Republican establishments are all corrupt. But the State Department is so far left. They're leftists. They're not just liberals, they're leftists. And the Pentagon is full of these people. How do you, the DOJ is full of these people. How do you think all this unmasking happened and all this stuff was created? And the fact that these wires and FISAs were up and these people were able to be overheard talking to different people. I don't know, Ian, oh, that's Remo's having a conversation with somebody there. I'm not sure exactly where my train of thought went there. So hold on a second. I'm going to regain it because I just lost it by looking at Twitter. Twitter does that to me all the time. The DOD. So the DOD is just as liberal in some aspects. It's maybe even more liberal than the State Department or the DOJ. Hence this whole nonsense about the transgender issue, which, by the way, we're going to get into more of that later on this week. Nobody has even, including myself, has even really been talking, except for one person I think I saw on Tucker Carlson's show, I believe it was, talking about how children are being abused because they're not even allowed to fully sexually develop before their parents are giving them all kinds of drugs through doctors who should be put in jail for this, along with abortion doctors who are performing abortions, along with psychologists who were telling these parents and the psychiatrists that, yeah, your kid is definitely a woman trapped inside a man's body when they're 10 years old. This is child abuse, and it's different when a full-grown adult who's had a full amount of growing experience to try to come to terms with what's going on in their mind. That is child. Anyway, we're going to cover that later on this week. But that exists in the DOD and in the Pentagon. They're that far leftist where the transgender issue has become a bigger issue for many of these people than whether or not we're ready to fight a war. But one of the things that the Pentagon is also doing when it comes to this program is that they are not evidently they're not vetting people. Evidently, they are allowing these people to come in and serve in the Pentagon, or excuse me, in the military in order for a path to their citizenship in the United States, and they are not being vetted properly. Again, the same should go with the Pentagon as it goes for the State Department. If you, and I apologize, I'm sorry for people who desire to come to this country, but you don't have the credentials, you don't have a home with address that we can put you down as, or we can track back. There's no police records. There's none of this stuff. It would be great if the Pentagon and the State Department would come up with, which they'll never do it, with something that people can say, okay, we have to have these things, so let's do this. We're gonna, just like the electric company, when you want to get an apartment, you have to show that you have this address for so long, and your apartment's here, and your name was under these bills, and if you want to claim residency for somewhere or something like that. So why don't they do that? Set it up where, okay, you can't come in the United States now as a citizen. You can't come in here and serve in the military right now as a path to citizenship. But what you can do is you can start building more of a foundation for us to see and judge you on. And I think 5 years, 10 years for people who want to come here that come from a third world country. Look, it's going to be a long 5 or 10 years. I'm sorry about that. But in order for us to maintain our security in this country, why wouldn't you come up with something like that? Well, that's not the way they think in federal government. And so this isn't the same. Let's see. I don't know who this guy is. So Remo, let me know if this guy needs to be blocked. So all right. So, folks, one of the things going up there to Washington, D.C. and giving that speech, I took Rico for a walk. Unfortunately, I did Facebook Live. Unfortunately, the something happened with the phone, and it just kept scrolling, and it kept saying that it was live, and I wasn't about to go sleep in my hotel room with a thing on Facebook Live, so I had to delete that video, unfortunately. But we walked right down the road. All right, hold on a second here. Whoever you are, block you for saying American foreign policy is dominated by Israel. Go ahead. Look, you don't have any facts to back that up. And the fact is, and I'll say this before I block you, I'll say this, and I'll get back on what I was saying before. I like to stay on topic with this show. The fact is, Israel, like any other country, has special interest in the United States. The United States has big business. We have big military. We have the ability to help them protect themselves. And Israelis can make a lot and do make a lot of money off the American people. And there's a thing called industrial espionage. Every country does it. Everybody's trying to find out everybody's secrets. And that's just the way that governments work against each other. Yes, I hate to break it to everybody. Israel spies on America. And they do it for industrial reasons. They also do it for policy reasons. But everybody else, we spy on them. Look what we did in Israel under Barack Obama, where we were trying to go in and change their elections. Kind of the same thing that they said the Russians did here. We had operatives on the ground. We were financing, not we, the president, Barack Obama and his administration, were financing spies to go over there and to work and set up all different kinds of stuff to try to push their election process to the way that they felt, the Obama administration felt was necessary. I mean, that's what happens. But American policy is not founded in what Israel wants. American policy. Do we have politicians and lawmakers and different people who may subscribe to doing whatever is best for Israel? Absolutely. Do we have, I think, in government, people that are in positions of in Congress and the Senate and that work in the White House that have not been fired yet, that subscribe to the Muslim Brotherhood? I absolutely do believe that. Do we have generals that are Muslim apologists? Yes, we do. McMaster is one of them. There's rumors that Kelly might be one of them. I haven't seen the proof of that, but I've definitely seen the proof of McMaster. Are there people in the DOJ that are communists? Absolutely. So you can't make blanket statements like this gentleman just did before I block you. I block people who are being irrational. And what's best for you to do is to go back and do your research and see the reality of who might be doing that for Israel, and realize that it's not our government that's being controlled and our policies that are being controlled by Israel. That's not the case. Everybody that's up there in Washington, D.C., because of the way things are made, because of the way things are done, their special interests rule and guide them. I don't know. Listen, we're not doing a show on whether or not Israel is drilling in Syria. That's not what we're doing a show on. So, do me a favor. Don't make me block you. Get on board with what we're talking about, or request that I talk about that, and we'll do some research on it. But that's one of the things. If you want to be a part of this show, don't come on and be a troll. Be a part of it. So, I'm looking at the time. So, and as our numbers are decreasing, let me just go through a couple more things. Now, the whole point of what I was trying to say there earlier about the DOD and this program where all these individuals are missing, and they believe, which I think based on training and experience are probably correct, that a lot of these people are unaccounted for, and they are afraid that they may be a part of ISIS or really fundamental Islam. I wish they would quit trying to divvy up these people by groups and just tell people what they are. They're fundamental Muslims, and they believe in destroying this country and global domination. So that is a problem, but it all comes back to the same thing. Lack of government forward thinking, lack of subject matter expertise, political agendas in places where there should not be political agendas, and a lack of leadership. You saw in that speech where I told people to stand in front and to get in a straight, get in lines and where we dress right dress, where there's straight lines going here, 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 and straight lines going there, there, there. And the reason I did that was because I wanted people to understand that they can actually work together and organize. And it looked terrible. I'm not going to lie. The lines were terrible, but they tried. And I can guarantee you, if I wasn't giving a speech and I had 10 minutes to work with all those people and explain what we were doing, we could have easily set everybody up there and everything would have been perfect. That's the way the American citizenry is. They're a free citizenry, and when they commit to learning and listening and learning and doing, things get done the right way. So we have a problem in the DOD. There's going to be good people that are not going to be able to become American citizens and fight for this country and earn their citizenship the right way because of bad policy, because of liberal politicians, and because leftists exist in the DOJ and the DOD, and they don't feel like anybody needs to be vetted. And that's really the backstory on that problem. So why don't we do this? I want to cover just a few more things here, and then I'm going to call it a night. And let's see here. All right, before I go to the next, to the B block and then close it out, I just want to say this. I saw Marco Rubio on Fox News. He's now a Fox News contributor. I couldn't think of any other. I mean, I can't figure out what's going on at Fox News. Are they literally trying to get the worst contributors possible? It's starting to leak over on Fox Business. I go over the other day, and this whole thing about Scaramucci is happening, and I see this girl. I don't have her name in front of me, but she's like a Hooters girl, Miss something, and they're always pushing her now on there, and she's like Tomi Lahren, except she's with dark hair. No experience, nothing there. She's given analysis that I don't know where her opinions come from or how she got qualified to say the things that she says. But Marco Rubio isn't that much better. Marco Rubio is in his 40s and has never really done anything besides serving a political seat. And he is worthless. As President Trump pointed out during the election process, he basically never votes or voted. He's gone now, I guess. And he was basically just there to rise in power. That's it. So listening to him analyze what he was talking about, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was about certain people being in government. This guy is as close to being, he was completely fake. I don't think he's actually conservative, and he definitely doesn't have the insight to be in the position that he's at. Chaffetz was another one. I know people love Trey Gowdy. Trey Gowdy has knowledge and training and experience, but Trey Gowdy is another one that has just resigned himself over to do nothing. There's some Air Force guy that I'm constantly seeing on CNN, another worthless bag of potatoes that has experience in the Air Force and then turns into this talking head. What are these people doing? And then you add on top of that Chris Christie getting in somebody's face at a baseball game because they said Chris Christie was a loser. I don't remember exactly what they said, actually. Let me look it up here real quick. Let me tell you something, folks. I don't condone violence. Let's see what he said. He said... So he screamed out, "You suck." Okay. So he screamed out, "You suck" to Chris Christie. And Chris Christie turned around and said something to him. If you haven't seen the picture of this, it's ridiculous. Chris Christie gets right in his face, and he's leaning over with a huge thing of nachos, go figure, right in his hand. And his security detail is standing around him. Let me tell you something. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care if Chris Christie's the governor of wherever. And that was a Brewers game. That was not a game that was in, I guess that was in Milwaukee, I believe. I don't know exactly where that was, but I don't think it was in New Jersey because his son works in the front office with the Brewers, I believe. And I don't care if you're a governor of what. If I say something openly and you turn around and get in my face like that, you're probably going to get smacked. And I don't think if that guy had smacked him, now I know what would happen. He would have gone to jail. But I don't think he would have been I think he could have, if he had a good attorney, he could have articulated the fact that this guy made a threatening move towards me. He's got 2 armed dudes above him, and that is an intimidating move, and my safety was threatened, especially if Chris Christie tripped and fell on him. I mean, the fact is, politicians shouldn't be acting that way, but Chris Christie is a mobster. Is anybody ever going to figure this out? Chris Christie, Bridgegate's a perfect example. He didn't like what a politician did up in Fort Lee, up here just across the George Washington Bridge, and so he strong-armed the guy, just like a mobster, and closed down the traffic on the bridge, or not closed down, but basically made it to where all the traffic just stopped on the bridge, which was a huge threat to the American public. What if somebody was sitting at home that's a bad guy and said, you know what, I'm going to get my bicycle and a gun. I'm going to drive up to the bridge right now and kill 100 people. They could have done it easily. There would have been no way that law enforcement could have responded except running down the bridge. And that bridge is like 2 miles long. Chris Christie is a mobster that doesn't care about his family. Period. And I hate the fact that Christopher Wray is attached to this guy. Christopher Wray is another one from Washington, D.C. He's going to be the head of the FBI. Go Fed. Listen, it's not a surprise that the Senate jumped on this bandwagon because Christopher Wray, Robert Mueller, James Comey, and the other guy that's acting attorney general, I forget his name right now, Rob Rosenstein, all these guys are connected. They all work together. They all scratch each other's backs. And this guy, Christopher Wray, was Chris Christie's attorney for Bridgegate. I mean, listen, President Trump, I support you, but Scaramucci was a bad mistake. That it was as easy as firing him and going on, and I applaud you for that. We'll talk about that sometime this week. But Christopher Wray, that's not going to be a mistake that you can blow off. You're not just going to go firing FBI directors every time they don't do or they do something that you feel is inappropriate. You're not going to do that. People are going to stand up and say, no, this isn't going to happen. You got a little bit more time where you can pull his name, and I would recommend you do that. Secondly, the whole thing with Mueller is criminal. Mueller shouldn't be in there. He's too close to Comey, first of all. Secondly, the whole thing is a farce, and now they're going to allow Mueller to go into the president's background and his taxes and all that stuff. He should have fired that guy when he had the chance or never appointed him to begin with because he was appointed based on a criminal act, which Comey did by leaking information. So, President Trump's got some problems with this guy. Now, one thing I do like, and I didn't get to talk about because it happened over the weekend, was General Kelly is going to be in a position now where hopefully the president will work with him. Hopefully the president will, like late night, if there's some tweets that he wants to do, he might be able to run it by General Kelly and say, what do you think about this? I don't think he could do that with Reince Priebus. Reince Priebus was a temporary tool with hopes that it would work out and that the establishment might get on board through Reince Priebus. But Reince Priebus is just he's like, he's just too indoctrinated and too much a part of the establishment, as I believe that, where other people are disagreeing with me on this. But I'm telling you, Jeff Sessions, I don't trust him. I think that he could be a super nice guy, but I believe he's either been compromised by the establishment or he is just a part of the establishment. I don't know which. So the past week has seen the rise and fall of several people. Scaramucci, one of the, he was a big mouth. I said I didn't like that from the beginning. I don't trust people who go from one candidate to another and then eventually they're loyal to the, one candidate that wins. I don't like that. I think that stinks of mob mentality. I'm not talking about numbers of people. I'm talking about the mafia mentality. Scaramucci, whether or not he is or not, I don't know, but he reminds me of somebody. I've arrested lots of people on cocaine before, and they do things where they think they are just badass, but they're just making fools out of themselves. Scaramucci, bad. destroyed. The guy should be on suicide watch because really he looks that bad. So there's been some rises and falls. But the other thing about Scaramucci is he didn't stand a chance. Scaramucci's not establishment. Scaramucci's a financer for the establishment. But for him to think he can come up there and do all this stuff and act this way, and, hey, I'm going to walk in here. Hey, listen, I've lived in New York for 12 years. Okay, I still feel myself as a Southerner. But I've been here long enough to where I remember one day I was my doorman, who's profoundly smart and has tremendous wisdom. One day he sees me walking downstairs in flip-flops, jeans, and a white V-neck Fruit of Looms T-shirt, which I always wear. He's like, where are you going? I said, I don't know. I'm going to go out and have a drink at the bar. He's like, you're now a New Yorker. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, because you don't care anymore. You don't care how you look. You have flip-flops, jeans, and a white T-shirt on. I was like, yeah, I guess so. New Yorkers, which I will never truly be this way because I'm a Southerner by heart, New Yorkers see themselves as top dog. They always do. And when you throw money, power, or drugs behind that, it creates an almost what is that big what's that big lizard that goes around and tears up all the Godzilla? It creates a Godzilla of ego. That's what happens. And so that's Scaramucci. He's this tall. His ego is 10,000 feet tall. And that's not going to work out well in Washington, D.C. No way. So he took the fall faster than anybody, I think, in the history of Washington, D.C. It had to be close. So I'm going to go on one more thing. We'll go to the B block. I'm going to cover this, and then we'll do the Truth Zone. Let's do it. All right. I didn't watch the video. I didn't read the story. I just saw the headline. Tomi Lahren and Chelsea Handler. I guess they went at it, and there were some sparks there. And Tomi Lahren says she would do it again. And this is all I got to say about that. Who freaking cares? Chelsea Handler is as close to a legal prostitute as you could ever become. The way she got famous was by doing some kind of sex act on video. She's not funny. She's crazy and shouldn't even be on television in front of people. I mean, she's probably the most immoral person on television. Dirty, nasty person. I'm not talking about her jokes. I'm talking about her. She's dirty and nasty. She makes Courtney Love look like somebody who should be doing soap commercials. Chelsea Handler is the disgusting person with no morals and no understanding of reality. She's done too many drugs. She's been in Hollywood for too long. Not that she ever knew. She's never going to know. Not until, like a lot of people on their deathbed, when all of a sudden they find the Lord and they see reality. And some of them don't even get that. On the other hand, you got Tomi Lahren, 24 years old, been fired from 2 different conservative networks. One of the networks, One American News, doesn't even hardly have commercials because they want to stay straight as an arrow to what they stand for, which is news, unbiased news, and 2 conservative shows that they have on in the evenings. But they want to stay pretty much unbiased in their news reporting, so much that the guys that own it, very, very wealthy, they do not they weren't accepting any advertisers for the longest time. Now they only have a few. Tomi Lahren was fired from that. I don't know if people realize she was fired from there. Then she goes over to The Blaze, which is ran by, Glenn Beck. Although Glenn's crazy, he has he is, I guess, a conservative. I don't really know what he is now, but she was fired from there for not really being a conservative, I guess you could say. So Tomi Lahren's 24 years old, graduated from college, never served in the military, never served in law enforcement, never been in government. Been fired from, I don't know how she got a show to begin with. And she's our champion against Chelsea Handler. Look, if Chelsea Handler wants to talk to somebody, let her come up against me. Let her go up against somebody like Scott Eulinger or, Jason Meister or Ron Bellin. Chelsea Handler should be going up against somebody like that. Tomi Lahren is a script away from being nothing, a teleprompter away from being nothing but an opinion. The facts are on the teleprompter. Listen, you can become wise. There's no doubt about that without having served in the military or law enforcement. You can serve people every day. But when you're 24 years old and your idea of conservatism is A, B, and C, but not really that Constitution thing and not really the whole right to life thing, where does it skip around that? But I'm conservative other than that. What you are is you're a 24-year-old millennial that either has never fully defined themselves or just has not gained enough life experience to fully understand that which you say you are. And those are the two people that they choose to put on television or on whatever it was, on a stage in front of people to debate. And one of the people is supposed to be, so this guy Jack's heard of Chelsea Handler, but he hadn't heard of me. Well, that's not saying much, bro. That's not saying much at all. Chelsea Handler is a person who prostitutes herself all over television. So not a big deal that you haven't heard of me. You should probably check out who I am and see what my credentials are and then get back to me on that. So I have no idea. You're well read. Well, evidently, Jack, you haven't read my credentials. So go ahead. So anyway, these two people are supposed to look. If you're liberal, you should be upset that Chelsea Handler is representing you. And if you're conservative, you should not be pleased with Tomi Lahren being your spokesperson. You need to look at people like Ben Shapiro, like Ann Coulter, all these people who you continuously see on the TV that are these conservative voice boxes. The reality is, when you start looking at who they really are, they're all, these people are propagandists. They're out there to get their names and to sell their books. Some of them are rhinos. Trump haters like Ben Shapiro. He's a huge Trump hater. He's also a Harvard grad, so I'd trust him about as far as I could spit, because Harvard will do just about whatever they can to mix things up in the conservative community. He could be a full plant. I don't know. I've never met the guy. I don't know. So it's interesting, folks. It's interesting how those are the people. It's interesting how those are the people that end up representing us. When you know who should be representing each other out there, some good, hard-working liberals, some good, hard-working conservatives, and you sit down and have a good, over some beers and some barbecue or something, and you have a good discussion, and we record that, and we realize, we say, and this is the way you do it. Don't discuss whether or not President Trump has done this correctly or that person has done that correctly. Don't debate or discuss whether or not Chelsea Handler or Tomi Lahren is correct. What you do is you sit down together and you have a chalkboard right in the middle of you, and you write down the things that need to be fixed in this country. And you sit down with a group of people, both conservative and liberals, and you say, listen, let's come up with as many different ways we can to fix this stuff. And once we come up with all these ways, let's see what really would work and what wouldn't. Let's start ticking this stuff off. You're going to find that you actually do think quite often very similarly. And then when you get to the things that are just outlandish, things that are backed for no reason other than opinion or emotion, then you can stand and you can debate those things. And people, here's the biggest thing. You have to be willing to accept the fact that what you believe has no foundation. Or you have to be willing to go back and say, wow, I tracked back what I believe, and it is founded in communism. Or it's founded in anarchy. Listen, there's people on the right. There are conservatives on the right that believe a certain thing about government, and the reality is what they believe is so far outside of what the Constitution the Founding Fathers proposed that they actually go into anarchy. And that circles its way right back around into the communist way of thinking. But they don't get that. They don't get it. So, folks, I think that's about it. I think we'll go to the truth zone. and we're down on viewers here tonight. It was not good. The numbers were not good, so we got to work on that. Here's the other thing before I go. I didn't say anything about this earlier, but my buddy Rico's down here sleeping next to me, and unfortunately, Rico may have some serious issues. I'm not sure yet. He has blood in his stool. It's the second bout he's had with that. Thought maybe it was some type of bacteria in there. He went on antibiotics, and I got to take him back to the vet again. And not sure. He hasn't eaten in a couple days. He doesn't have a lot of energy, so we'll see what happens. If you want to donate to the GoFundMe page to Rico, just put on there, it's for Rico, and I'll apply that to his vet bills. And but if you do want to go to the GoFundMe page, which you see scrolling across here at the bottom of the screen, and donate to the show, that's fine. Let me know. But just put to you this way: I took him there the other day. I had his heart checked. He had an X-ray on his heart and an office visit, and he got some medicine. Cost $400. So yeah, pray for Rico. If you want to donate to help out with the vet bills, you can do that as well. And then we'll get caught back up on this show after this week. We'll figure out what's going on with him. But he's asleep down there right now. Are you asleep? Yeah, he's knocked out. All right, that's it. Let's go to the Truth Zone. All right. There's a couple of things that happened tonight. For one, I talked to two different people that came on and said something snarky, and I came back with them with some facts. One last guy there, I said, maybe you should go read up on my background. He said he would. I can't call those people trolls. And if he wants to come back and debate some stuff, but he's read my background, then I'm all for that. Remember, folks, this show, I don't do this show for my ego. And I don't go give speeches for my ego. What I do is I seek the truth, and I attempt to bring that truth to you. There's things going on in this world. There's things going on in Washington, D.C. There's things going on that you've been told this is reality when it's not. And your opinions, just like the guy that I was talking about earlier who had the drugs in the warehouse, you're formulating your opinions, folks, whether you're liberal or conservative. You're formulating your opinions based on lies and minute details, not minute details, a lack of details of reality. And that's a huge thing. That's a terrible thing, because, folks, you are basically in a fight for what's right in this country, and I'm reading these Twitter things. You're being invited into a fight against each other based on lies. Look, folks, it's no different than fratricide. That is blue on blue or green on green or force on force, whatever you want to call it. When two forces from the same side don't do their mission planning properly, and they go out and they end up shooting each other. Some of the biggest firefights people that I know have been with each other or other friendly forces. You're being led down that same road of fratricide. And liberals and conservatives, you're really not liberal and conservative. You're people that are being told it can only be figured out this way, or can only be figured out that way, and you can only be this way or that way, and that's not true. It's not true. And the rounds that you're flinging at each other, and the insults that you fling at each other, and the nonsense that you bring to the table is based on lies. Just like bad mission planning. We're getting ourselves into, or we've gotten ourselves into a position in this country where we are literally fighting each other and not the enemies. Organized crime in Washington, D.C., communism in Washington, D.C., again and again, I see things like in Texas now it's legal for, and this is awesome, for people to carry guns in colleges and even at junior or city colleges. Meanwhile, in New York City, you can't even own a gun to protect yourself, and if anything goes wrong, you have to wait for somebody else. You can't even rescue yourself. It's unbelievable what we've allowed ourselves to get into, and it's based on lies and control by families like the Paul Ryans and the Kennedys and all of these people that wish nothing but harm for our country. I'm Jonathan Gillum. Old Rico's down there asleep. Pray for him. I'll see you tomorrow on The Experts. I believe in you, America. I don't believe in liberal and conservative. I believe in you. The truth has arrived.